You take a mainstream film like Beetlejuice that is renowned. I mean, merchandising, the Halloween season. If you go to a haunted attraction, you might see some Beetlejuice props or characters or actors. The Beetlejuice music. Theaters will show, uh, in an older film type night, they'll show Beetlejuice. Let's experience Beetlejuice a little bit. Beetlejuice has been a part of my life, since I was a tot, and it wasn't until the past 5 or so years that it hit me that there was like a hit, like a guttural hit when I would watch the movie. And I've seen the movie a lot of times. Consistently, I watch it through the years, at least, once a year. And more things keep kind of coming out. But one of the things that hit me about Beetlejuice is that it seemed to me to be a film that was confronting our mortality, confronting death, confronting our fear of death, oncoming death, unstoppable death. And not just death, but also suffering before death, and then possibly the prospect of suffering after death. So, oncoming death, like oncoming traffic, oncoming death, and then what comes after it, which is essentially the core of the horror genre. The horror genre definitely dealing with our mortality, and then specific pieces of of subgenres of horror will also deal with what comes after. If anything, what is it? And our fear of that also, not just the fear of death and of dying, but also what comes after that, the unknown. Okay, so I started to really see that in Beetlejuice. And there were a couple of things in the film, if you know it, that really kind of hit me. So the one of the things that hit me was one of the most disturbing scenes in the film to me is when the married couple, Gina Davis and Baldwin, I think, they get kind of resurrected into their wedding clothes on the dining room table due to using a ritual from the handbook for the recently deceased. So, kind of illegally. And they start aging very quickly. But the wife is aging rapidly while the husband still stays the same age and watches his wife age to the point of decay. He holds her hand and it crumbles. Her shoes fall off and her feet just kind of wither, toes curl in. And you can kind of see like an old person, like even John Carradine, that actor, when he was older, he had arthritic fingers that kind of curled like that. And it got me thinking about the idea of aging, the idea of the fear of aging, and in that particular case, having someone, typically if you're with somebody, married, friends, dating, acquaintances, co-workers, you age together. Even if you're different ages, you age together. So it's not something that's very noticeable. But in that scene in Beetlejuice, the wife is aging rapidly while the husband stays the same age. And to be able to see the person you love in a way that you would have never seen them, because you still look the way you do in your youth, and then that really sets you apart from the person you love just rapidly decaying. What would be a great example of that in our day-to-day lives would be somebody who suffers from cancer. Watching someone you love suffer from cancer and decaying rapidly. The redheaded wife in the film that moves into the house, I'm blanking on her name, excellent actress. At the end of the movie, she presents a sculpture of the snake Beetlejuice head to her husband in his, quiet library, and scares the crap out of him. He almost falls out of his chair, and she laughs. That sculpture, to me, is the essence, the theme, the mission statement of the original Beetlejuice film. That snake Beetlejuice scene in the film was the scariest scene to all those people involved, where they almost died. It was terrifying. They had no idea what was going on, and it was a nightmare, and with the threat of literal death, especially as he dropped the woman's husband onto the floor from beyond the stairs. And she makes a sculpture of that. Why would she make a sculpture of that? Why would you make a sculpture of something of a time where you almost died? A time that was absolutely terrifying. And you scare your husband with it, who almost died during it, and she laughs. That is not only the essence of the film Beetlejuice, it could be the essence of the horror genre. When somebody, and the answer to people's question of how could you watch this stuff when the world already is so painful. And lastly, the last dance scene, the Shake Shake Sonora, is when Winona Ryder, levitates, and the dead football players are on the stairs behind her, and this is something that she gets whenever she gets good grades, I guess, from the ghost couple. I always get really emotional during that powerful ending sequence, because it's almost like alluding to the Dance of Death, or if you look up Danse Macabre, which was kind of a thematic concept of kind of dealing with death or facing death. And here she is, a girl who is steeped aesthetically in death, and then flirted with actually wanting to die because of not feeling like she had a place in the world. And that confused Beetlejuice, by the way. Somebody who wants to come to this side? You have the girl who flirted with actual suicidal thoughts, and then she comes back around and realizes she does have a place on Earth. But she also gets the best of both worlds, and she also gets to connect to her ghostly family as well, and gets to celebrate supernaturally with those dead football players behind her also dancing. Cut up, deformed, mutilated football players. And it's a victorious dance. The dance of death? Is that Beetlejuice? Is that the horror genre that we love? Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice.